one of the things that I've been doing for a number of years is working with young people. Pretty much now for the last 19 years or so. I started as a high school English teacher when I was about a year and a half sober, and I have been working with young people ever since. I've worked with young people on issues of violence prevention, anger management, conflict resolution, diversity, prejudice, discrimination. It's just been a passion of mine, and just it's been what my life has been, or a great portion of my life has been. And I've also done a lot of education, health education, substance abuse education with young people. And what I've learned from doing that, first of all, was just how much damage I did to myself as a teenager. What we didn't know then, what I didn't know when I was 12, and I actually really didn't know until I became a health educator with FCD Educational Services, is who I did that with, is that our brains pretty much keep developing until we're in our early 20s, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later it stops. And so the impact of drugs and alcohol on the developing brain is much more profound than on the fully formed brain. And you can just imagine it even from like a non-medical sounding standpoint, you know, of the neurochemicals in your brain developing, and there they are developing, and then you introduce some new chemicals to the mix. And those chemicals come and then they go, and then the rest of the brain says, hey, where did those chemicals go? And oh, I think we got it from taking that substance, and thus begins the cycle. And you know, there's a lot of damage that can be done. Like the way that people used to say it back then was drugs kill brain cells. And the reason why a lot of young people didn't believe adults is because they would look it up and they would say, wait, not all drugs kill brain cells. You said they kill brain cells, but they don't all kill brain cells. Sometimes they just rearrange them, or they change them in some way. So we're always being looked at, or adults are always being looked at, to see if they can find one loophole can be found in the argument. So I'm not going to say drugs kill brain cells, because not all drugs kill brain cells, but I am going to say that the brain develops until the early 20s, and that the impact of the substance on the brain while your brain is still developing is profound and can kill brain cells and or change neurochemistry and or take a brain that was supposed to form in one way and form it in another. So I have deficits in my brain power. I mean, I'm very fortunate to be sitting here today and speaking and have what I have of my brain. But there are deficits in my brain, and a lot of them have to do with mood, in terms of what it takes to get me into a good mood because of what I did to my brain with drugs and alcohol, and a lot of it has to do with memory. My memory situation is pretty dim. And you know, when you get to my age and you're in your 40s and you want to remember things from way back when, and you can't because you dimmed that part of your brain, it's very frustrating, and it's a little, it's a little depressing. And so if I had known then, I can't guarantee you that I wouldn't have still, used or not. But I could tell you that I was a pretty smart kid, and that I probably would have really weighed the options and taken a look at it and made a decision based on a little bit of education. So the information that we have today is a lot stronger, and it's a lot more researched, and we just know a lot more about the brain, although it's still a very mysterious organ. If you want to make the best choice with your brain, it's good to be realistic and to be caring about it, and think of it the same way that when you learned to brush your teeth when you were 4 years old or 5 years old, that you took it on and kept doing it because it was helping, and it would make it so that your life would go a certain way. It's the same with alcohol and drugs and other substances on the developing brain. The developing brain needs to be nourished, not to be hit with toxins and all kinds of craziness. So again, I mean, when I think of it, I stopped drinking and using when I was 26. I basically used alcohol and drugs on top of the most profound. Adolescence is when the most profound brain development happens. From 0 to 2 is the fastest brain development, followed then by adolescence is the next huge leap. So by using the whole time I was an adolescent, I really did a lot of damage to myself. And I'll answer the question that I'm sure more than one person's, well, you're okay, what's the problem? Well, I'm not totally okay, in as much as I'm very lucky to be sitting here, number one. Number two, statistically, I am in a distinct and very vast minority to be in the state that I'm in, to have kept enough of my brain to be able to do the work that I do and have the life that I have. But there's a lot to my story after I stopped using that is the result of the damage that I did to my brain and to my emotions, my emotional life, my mental life, my physical life, that took a long time to resurrect, and that there were parts of what I did to myself that I could not regain or change. So it can be a pretty permanent thing. So